Hi, welcome to the 4th episode of QuarantinEd. I'm Nate, I'm the EUTV Programming Manager, and I'm presenting for the day. Scarlett talks to Sunday Times bestseller Rachel Hoare about her book A Week in Paris. Caroline and Lizzy show us how to get started in embroidery. And our review team talks about what's helping them stay sane during lockdown. And the band Better Halves perform the Proclaimers classic, Sunshine on Leith.
NHS Tayside in the east of Scotland was praised last month as an exemplar by First Minister Nicola Sturgeon for its response to the coronavirus. One day in April, more healthcare workers were tested in Tayside than in the whole of England. Dr. Tom Farden is a consultant physician in respiratory and general internal medicine at NHS Tayside. As well as working in the COVID unit at Ninewells Hospital in Dundee, he has been using Facebook to keep people informed and to debunk potentially harmful rumours about the infection. His posts have been widely shared and read, and Dr. Farden now has thousands of followers on Facebook. He also has personal experience of the virus, having contracted it last month. Now back at work, Dr. Farden found the time to speak to EUTV for this week's episode of QuarantinEd. You were part of the Tayside COVID preparation group. Can you tell us a bit about that?
We knew that COVID was coming across to the UK in early March, so we had about 2 weeks to plan, and that involved a complete reorganisation of where the clinic rooms are, where patients come into the hospital, where in the hospital patients will be seen, how can we isolate them, how can we keep the staff safe, how can we keep patients safe. So that was a very, very busy couple of weeks, planning for something that none of us had any experience with.
Do you think your preparatory work meant Tayside was in good stead for what was coming?
I think so. If we to try to put a finger on why we've done well, I think it's team working and acceptance of making changes quickly, trusting the clinicians. We were able to very quickly fix things with support from everywhere.
Can you tell us a bit about what day-to-day life is like on the COVID unit?
Initially, very busy, a lot of patients with a disease we didn't understand, only working on reports of colleagues in Italy and Spain and China. We quickly came to recognise what COVID looks like and how rapidly it can progress and how to treat the patients. Now, as the numbers are dropping off, we're still making the diagnoses of COVID, but it's far, far fewer than it was a month ago. It's not busy at the moment. I think that's fair to say. Most places in most hospitals say that things have settled down and it's not busy, but it's starting to get busier. So people who have got non-COVID related problems, I think were reluctant to come to hospital a month or 6 weeks ago, but now those people are realising they can come to hospital. We're open, we're available for anything and anybody, and we have safe systems in place to get them in and make sure they're screened, make sure that they're safe, treat them and get them home again.
So kind of related to that, I was going to ask what you think the long-term implications for public health regarding non-COVID conditions will be.
Yeah, it's a really good question. We're not going to know until we get through it. Going into a lockdown, locking down 5 million people in a country and more in England, I think the psychological impact that has had on people is easy to underestimate. In terms of physical illness, we've tried very hard to make sure that those people with the most severe physical illnesses, we've still been in touch with them, they've still had support. The truth is there's still a lot of people who've not been able to access healthcare through this period for their illnesses, and that's why now for us our priority has to be restarting clinical services for everybody else, but it's going to be very different.
You have had the COVID infection. Would you be willing to tell us a bit about that, the symptoms you experienced, how quickly you got tested and how recovery was?
So I just woke up with a very bad headache, severe headache, and a really bad sore throat. Going to work, I just felt really tired walking to my office, and very quickly within the space of a couple of hours I realised something was really wrong, and at that point left the work environment, went to get a test, went home, and I had a result back within 7 hours. So I had a phone call from one of our doctors who gives out the results and told I had COVID. Filled me with a lot of anxiety, but at least I knew. And then for the next 2 weeks I had headaches, perhaps a little bit of cough, a little bit of breathlessness. The main thing was being very, very tired and achy. I felt like I'd run one of your ultramarathons. So after 2 weeks of that, I started to get better. After a month, I was well enough to come back to work. I still have a discomfort across my chest. I wouldn't call it pain. So it's an ache across my chest. This is a long game. It is a very unusual virus.
Next, Scarlett talks to best-selling author Rachel Hoare about her book A Week in Paris and her top tips for aspiring novelists.
Last week I had the pleasure of reading Sunday Times bestseller A Week in Paris by Rachel Hoare. The book centres around mother-daughter bonds, music, war and an unquenchable thirst for discovering truth. After meeting Rachel 2 years ago, I was delighted to speak with her again about her book.
I used to work in publishing and was an editor for fiction. I started teaching very part-time, and at the same time I started trying to write. And I've been writing now for 14 or 15 years, and I've had 10 books published. It takes about 14 months for me to write a book. I just happened to be at my publisher's in a meeting, and I joked and I said, well, what do you think I should write about in the next book? And my editor said, music. And then somebody else chirped up and said, oh, you write really well about war. So I thought, okay, music and war. So that's how it often happens. It's just a sort of bit by bit realisation of what a book can be about. The main characters are all fictional, but a lot of the things that happened in the book are based on real life events. Yes, ideally you want to fit your fictional characters into a factual situation. I think if you haven't done any writing at all before, or only a very little, then doing a novel from scratch is quite ambitious. You'd do well to start a bit smaller. The main piece of advice is being loyal to your project. But if you are determined to jump in with both feet and try the long haul, then you have to have an idea really that just teases and tugs at you, and you think, yes, I'd like to see where this idea goes. But if it's merely that you're a little bit frightened of it, then you should force yourself to sit down and overcome the fear and just write something that can be edited. No, I've not had any approaches from filmmakers. I'd be delighted if they did.
If it was ever made into a film, do you have any actors in mind?
Sort of Scarlett Johansson for Faye, I think, and someone like Audrey Tautou for Kitty. But the book I've just written is about a female spy in the 1930s, and it's going to be called A Beautiful Spy.
Do you know when that's going to be published?
Coming out in February in hardback.
Up with your next book, and
Thank you.
Thank you. You've made my day.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I've enjoyed talking to you again, Scarlett, and hope everything goes well for you.
Here's Caroline talking to Hope Holmes, who along with the group For the Love of Scrubs has been making PPE for key workers. Review producer Jack chats to some of the EU TV team to find out what's been helping them stay sane during lockdown.
These are dark times we are living in. Many on the front lines defending our country from this terrible disease, while others are simply trying to stay sane.
Welcome back to Staying Sane. Today we're just talking about things that make us happy while we're in lockdown, things that are keeping us sane, stop the depression hitting us while we're all quarantined. Today I'm joined by Kate and Nate. Nate, do you want to kick it off?
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about a show that I know you watch as well, which is DC's Legends of Tomorrow. So there have been a lot of shows sort of went off air for the first couple of weeks of Corona, and Legends was included in that, and that was a real bummer because it's become honestly one of my favourite shows that's like still ongoing. It started off as one of those as a spin-off from the CW Arrowverse shows where they just kind of put a bunch of sort of B-list characters in there and were like, go have fun. And the first season was frankly garbage, but then they kind of bought into this whole premise of time travel and just decided, we've got superheroes traveling in time, why don't we make this the most bonkers show on TV? And it just worked completely. Every season brings some new level of insanity. So, for instance, recently there was a murder mystery episode where the dog was the culprit, which was wonderful. And yet they always manage to sort of keep you invested because you do genuinely care about characters. They're really likable and wholesome. And it's 45 minutes of pure escapism, which is exactly what I need in these trying times.
So I would like to recommend Charlie Brooker's Antiviral Wipe, now available on BBC iPlayer. Charlie Brooker used to host News Wipe and then Weekly Wipe. It's a sort of satirical news review. He hasn't been on our screens doing this since the 2016 News Wipe, I think. Obviously he's been doing Black Mirror, but this was a kind of funny, surreal look at the lockdown and quarantine, etc. Involved descriptions of Matt Hancock as your sister's first boyfriend with a car, and Chris Beatty as Tintin prematurely aged having watched his dog drown. And it's funny, and I think it's improved from having a lot of time off. I think you kind of, absence makes the heart grow fonder. And yeah, contributions from Diane Morgan as Philomena Kunk, who has since gone on to have her own series. But yeah, she started on Newswipe. So yeah, Charlie Brooker, Antiviral Wipe, BBC iPlayer, would highly recommend.
Cool, so I'm going to talk about a video game called Stardew Valley, which I bought because it was like £12 and I didn't want to spend money on Animal Crossing, and it was basically the same game. You basically play this guy, which you customize, which is yourself, who's in a like deadbeat job that he's just not happy with the corporate structure and he wants to get out of the city. So your granddad passes away and he leaves a farm in his will for you. So you decide just one day you're fed up of your work and you just go running away to this like little village, and it's your job basically just to clean up, have relationships with all the different town people. There's only about 20, and I could probably name them all and all their like personalities to you. You just become that invested. You do fishing, and you go on walks, and you get animals that you care for, and it sounds really boring, but I have invested, as of today, 98 hours into this game, which for me, I normally get turned off by a game maybe at 20 or 30 hours, so I don't know how I'm still going. But it's really nice if you just stick a podcast or like an album on or something and just play for a little bit. It's just nice escapism. Thanks for watching.
And here's Emily talking about how the people of Athens are looking after the city's stray cats.
In Athens, there are hundreds, thousands, maybe even tens of thousands of stray cats that live on the street. But they don't go hungry. The residents of the city happily feed and nurture these animals as if they were their own. And indeed, they seem to belong to everyone in the city. We have a special connection with the cats who live on our block, which there are 4 main ones, 3 you can see in this video, that especially love my dog, Bo. We give them kibbles almost every day, along with other residents on our cul-de-sac. But we also don't forget about the cats who live all over the city. In the evenings, we often walk around the city with a bag of kibbles and give them to each cat we find. Even during a pandemic like this, the cats of Athens will never go hungry.
And here Kate talks to a doctor who's on the front line of the battle against COVID-19.
Another thing that you've been doing as well as your clinical work is informing people through frequent Facebook posts. What made you start doing them?
Whilst I was just flicking through my Facebook feed, I noticed just a couple of my friends on Facebook spreading what we've now come to call fake news. Articles from various places or comments that people have made and they've been misinterpreted. They get put on Facebook and Twitter, and suddenly everyone starts to believe that you can't take ibuprofen because it's going to give you COVID. That was the thing that triggered me to do it. Getting that kind of fake news I thought was dangerous. So all I started doing was initially writing, look, if you've heard this news about ibuprofen, the science behind it is not proven. Please be safe. Don't worry. And then the next day, some people wrote to me and said, well, what about ACE inhibitors? Or tell me about the virus. Are we all going to die? Are we all going to be in hospital? What's going to happen? And I just started answering questions. I think by the third post, 1,000 people had shared it, and I realized something strange was going on. And now I have just nearly 6,000 people, friends on Facebook, and another 5,000 who follow me, which is a bizarre thing for me to get my head around, because normally my Facebook feed is just occasional pictures of me running or a picture of the cat. I think what it's shown is that there's a definite need or desire from the public to have things explained in a simple, straightforward way that's easy to understand. I had a few people comment to say, how could they thank me? Could they send me things? And that's very nice. So for my next post, I put a donate button on Facebook, and I think we've raised £7,500, which is incredible, absolutely incredible. It does put some pressure on me on a Saturday to write an interesting Facebook post.
How do you think the government response has been, both at UK central government and in the devolved administrations?
I'm glad I'm not a politician, I think, is the answer to that question. I can really only talk about Scotland. I felt in Scotland, working with Scottish government, is that our opinions have been sought. As experts and specialists in the area, people have come to us and said, what should we do? And the government has listened to us. Scotland is different from England. It's geographically different, it's demographically different, it's politically different, it's a different place. So you can't just blanketly apply what you do in England to Scotland. We've provided differing opinions, differing guidance, and they've applied that. So I think that's been a very positive thing. I'm sure that most honest politicians would say mistakes have been made. Of course I have. But being in Scotland, I'm far more confident in the system as how it works, because I've been part of it, and I feel listened to, and I feel involved, and I feel that decisions are being made, important decisions are being made based on science, based on evidence and data.
How do you think we as a society will have changed as we come out of this?
Yes. You're not asking me the simple questions, are you, Kate? Straight in the hard-hitting questions. There was an organisation that tried to organise some rallies in part of people who wanted to protest against the lockdown. And when that was announced, I thought this is going to be very interesting to see what happens. Because how is society going to react to what has been, I think, a science, evidence and data-driven process of trying to reduce transmission of a potentially lethal infection? And one person went to that rally. You can see the video on YouTube. I think it renewed my faith in humanity, at least certainly in Tayside. People have had time to stop and take stock and think, well, yes, it's unpleasant. Yes, it's difficult. Yes, it's challenging. Yes, I've had to stay in my house. But why? And that's because we have vulnerable people in our society that we need to protect. And that is part of our role as a society to do that. And people are incredibly supportive. They're hugely supportive of all the key workers, doctors, nurses, pharmacists, porters, bus drivers, people who deliver the milk to you, people who do all the essential services that we don't think about, people who collect your bins, people who are doing the work that means you can carry on living a normal life. I just get a feeling that people at the moment are just very appreciative of what they've got and appreciative of each other. I just hope that as we come out of the lockdown, that carries on, that people still give each other courtesy, that people still stand aside to let people through, just acknowledge the efforts that other people are putting into things. If this happens again, if we have another infection that swipes across the country, then people will remember what works and what doesn't and be prepared to do what's necessary, because they're doing it now. People are doing it. It's really good to be part of the community.
Thank you so much for talking to us. I really appreciate it.
And for those looking to get in shape during quarantine, here's Daisy with a quick and easy vegan recipe.
Hi everyone, my name is Daisy and I run a food blog on Instagram called Dishes by Daisy. EUTV have kindly invited me today to share with you guys how to make a crispy tofu teriyaki rice bowl, so I really hope you enjoy. For this recipe, you're going to need half a block of plain tofu, some corn flour to ensure it goes nice and crispy, and then some seasonings of your choice. I tend to go for hot chili powder when I'm seasoning my tofu. For the teriyaki sauce, you're going to need some sesame oil, some honey, some soy sauce, about a thumb of ginger, a couple of cloves of garlic and a lemon. Then we're also going to need a bell pepper, some sesame seeds and some chili flakes. You can serve this dish with either noodles or rice, and I'm going to go for rice today. So I've just preheated the oven to 180 degrees and got some water boiling for our rice. The first step is to get as much moisture as you can out of the tofu. We're doing this to ensure that it gets as crispy as possible, so let's get started on that. I've just chopped up my tofu into cubes. The rice has been boiling now for a couple of minutes, so we're going to season this with some hot chili powder, rub it with some corn flour and drizzle some sesame oil on top, and this will go in the oven for about 15 minutes until it's nice and crispy or until the rice is done cooking. So next up, we are going to prep our vegetables. So I'm going to mince up 2 cloves of garlic and the ginger, and then we are going to finely slice about 3/4 of our bell pepper. Next up, I'm going to make the teriyaki sauce. So I'm going to get started on that, and what I'll do is I'll leave all the measurements of everything that you're going to need on the screen. Right, so everything is now cooked and it's time to plate up. I'm just going to go grab some fresh herbs from the garden and then I'll show you the final result.
Next up, Lizzy talks to dog breeder Sue Runyon and her adorable Leonberger puppies.
Hi and welcome back to Pets of the Week. This week I scored an interview with Sue Runyon, whose kennel, River Glen Leos, is situated in northeast Iowa and is dedicated to raising Leonberger puppies. And so how many dogs do you have at the moment then?
We have 2 Leonberger dogs. We have 3. We have an Irish setter, but our Leos are, the mother is Sophie and she's 5 years old. And we have Belle, and she'll be 3 in the fall. We are breeding Sophie now. She's had 3 litters. I'm going to breed her 1 more time when she turns 6. But otherwise, they're just our pets, which is great.
So how did River Glen Leos begin then?
Well, I wanted to breed dogs. I'd always wanted to breed dogs. We were at a family wedding, and there was a man there with a large dog that I had never seen before. And I've always loved dogs, so I know a lot of dog breeds, but I'd never seen this breed before. So I stopped and asked him. He told me it was a Leonberger, and I thought, this is the dog I want to breed.
After spotting another Leonberger in London, Sue knew it was fate.
There was a young man there with a large puppy that I could tell was a Leonberger. So again, I thought, okay, this is what I want. I was given the name of a Canadian breeder. That's how we started.
So why don't you tell me a little bit more about the breed in general then?
People ask me what work was it bred for, and I tell them to be a companion and to be a family dog.
Moreover, as well as being champion show dogs, the Leonberger Club of America often puts them forward as therapy dogs too.
They can take them in nursing homes, schools, libraries, hospitals, but they love the Leonberger coming into like a hospital setting or a nursing home setting because they are large enough that if people are in a wheelchair or a hospital bed, they can just reach their hand down and pet them.
She also tells me that Leonbergers are used for search and rescue.
That's because they have webbed feet, so they're strong swimmers, and they have a double coat. They have a vest they put on with handles that people can hang on, or children can actually climb on their back. I have a friend that lives on one of the coasts, and his dog has been trained for rescue. And he said, when I go to the beach, I have to be careful. The children are in the water playing and screaming. If I don't have my dog on the leash, she'll run and pull them out of the water.
So where do these puppies go once they leave the farm?
They're in 8 different states in our country now. The farthest away is probably, there's one in Virginia and there's one in Colorado.
However, she also warns against getting involved with businesses that specialize in quick and unethical puppy breeding.
There are some, what we call puppy mills, and you can usually spot them because they sometimes even have PayPal. They'll just ask for your money and they'll send you a puppy.
I think that's all the questions that I have. Thank you so much for chatting with us today at EUTV. So to find out more about River Glen Leos, you can visit their page on Facebook or you can check out their website at riverglenleos.com.
I talked to experienced marathon runner Kate McIntosh as part of my attempts to become a slightly healthier human being.
Hello, I'm Kate, this is Nate. How are you doing this week?
Yeah, I'm good. So last time we talked, I said I wasn't going to necessarily try and go up to the next level. I was running about 7 minutes, with 2 minutes in between, 2 minutes of walking, but I was feeling okay with it, so I tried to go up to 8 minutes, and it was actually okay. So according to Strava, I got to 3.32 miles, which is further than I've been before. I got back in actually less time than I was expecting.
And I feel we should address the fact you have now got Strava.
Yes, it's quite fun. I was very happy when I found out they call it gap grade adjusted pace. That's great for me because there are just hills around me, so it's nice to know how fast I would be going on a normal surface.
For those who don't know, Strava, I think it's from the Swedish for strive, is like Facebook or Instagram, other social networks are available for runners. So you can post your runs, people can follow you and they can kudos your runs and comment on them. How is it feeling?
Because I ran a bit faster on the way back, I did feel it quite a lot yesterday, but it didn't feel too awful. I think I sort of managed to keep myself going relatively slow. Yeah, it's feeling all right. At the moment, the hardest thing is I'm trying to do a workout in the days between running, and that's just horrible. Also, I'm having to get up earlier now because it's too hot to run after like 10. Yeah, it's been really quite warm.
For Strava, do you find that encourages you, or do you worry that you're going to get sucked into like the data? Are there too many numbers, or do you find it encouraging and interesting?
I think I don't mind the data so much. I'm more just worried that like if I start using it as I sort of use Facebook, that I will just get really competitive with people who are way fitter than me, and that will just discourage me. But no, for the most part, I think the data's fairly manageable, and it's just nice if you're sort of stepping up a little bit more each time to just see you're going a bit faster, you're going a bit further, or you're climbing a bit more.
I'm glad your running's going well. What are your aims for next week?
Oof. Well, at the moment, 8 is going fairly well. So I think I'm going to try and do 9 minutes of running and 2 minutes of walking, which is, it's a big step up. It's actually, I was having to think about this. I'm quite proud of the fact that I've gone from like 1 minute of running to 8 minutes of running at a time. That's quite fun. But yeah, we'll give it a go, see if I can survive it, and yeah, just take things slow.
Awesome.
Great.
Good luck. Happy running.
Thank you. Happy running to you too.
Thank you. Thanks for watching. See you next time.
Caroline and Lizzy teach us a little bit about the dark arts of embroidery.
Hi, my name is Lizzy Laycock and welcome back to Quarantine Crafts. So today we're looking at embroidery, both a fun new TikTok trend and a great way to get in touch with your inner grandma. So first up, we have Caroline again to show you how to get started.
Here are 7 basic embroidery stitches. Using these 7 stitches, you can make a pillow like this.
First stitch I'm going to demonstrate is the basic running stitch. All you do is start with the thread at the back, pull it through to the front, and then go back down to the back again. And then you just continue this process. The next stitch I'm going to demonstrate is the back stitch. This stitch starts like a running stitch, but instead of moving forward, you go back to where you came from. This creates a solid line, unlike the dashed line in the running stitch. For this demonstration, I've made all the stitches significantly bigger than they'd be in real life so that the camera could easily pick up on them. The third stitch I'm going to demonstrate is the satin stitch. For the satin stitch, I use doubled over thread. Bring the needle from the back and then up and down to the top of the section. Continue this process until the section is complete. Make sure the thread doesn't twist. Next, I'm going to demonstrate the blanket stitch. You're going to start with the thread in the back, but instead of going to where you want to go up to the corner, but make sure to leave some thread behind so that there's a loop. You're going to go up through the back again, making sure to catch the loop and create an L shape. Continue this process to continue the stitch. Next, I'm going to show you how to do a French knot. For this stitch, start at the back, then take the thread and loop it around the needle 3 times. Follow that by sticking the needle as close as you can back to the original spot and pull through. This creates the French knot. Pulling the thread looser or tighter will make bigger or smaller French knots. The next stitch I'm going to show is a straight stitch. For this stitch, start at the back, pull the thread through and then into the center. Then repeat the process starting from the back and then up and back to the same point in the center. And that is how to do a straight stitch. The final stitch I'm going to show is a woven wheel stitch.
Start off by making 5 straight stitches. Then bring the thread back through to the front and begin to weave by going over one and then under the neck. Continue the over-under process until the entire section has been filled in. This stitch is great for making roses. And that is how to do 7 different basic embroidery stitches.
And next, I'll show you 3 easy ways to transfer your design from online to your fabric. So if you can't draw, I'll show you how to cheat.
First, find the design that you want to trace. I'm using a ginkgo leaf illustration by @3feathers Design. For the first method, simply tape up your fabric and tape it to the laptop screen. Then simply trace the design. Then simply put the fabric in the hoop and get going. For the second method, print off your design. Then, using your needle, prick holes along the entirety of the pattern. Pin the paper to the fabric, and using a pen, lightly fill in the holes that you've made. Pull the fabric back, join the dots, and then you'll have your stencil. Now the final method is essentially a homemade cheat for not having any embroidery transfer paper. Simply tape a tissue to the screen, trace the design, and lay the tissue with the design over your fabric. Fit it all together in the hoop and simply sew the design through it. Once finished, simply remove the tissue. And there you have it, a way to embroider any design you like without asking your arty friends to do it for you.
And now we've got a new segment where I'm talking to Adam Bircher about his love for the tabletop RPG Dungeons & Dragons and why it's become more popular in the 21st century. Welcome to what we are currently calling Have a Niche Day. It's a working title. We haven't got anything sorted yet. If you have anything better, let me know in the comments. We're just going to be talking about the kind of stuff that maybe you're a bit embarrassed to like, or you feel like you're boring people when you start to talk about it. Today, we're going to be talking to Adam. What have you picked?
I have been a massive fan for about 11, 12 years of the tabletop RPG Dungeons & Dragons. One person designs a mission, a sort of campaign, that the rest of their friends have to deal with, have to sort of solve these problems to complete a story and complete some objectives. And I know that you like it because we've played it together, Nate.
I do. I have to admit, I was very reticent to get involved with it because I think there's a certain stereotype that goes with it. Oh, my cat's joining. I've played a couple of campaigns and they've all been very different. You were very well organised. You had like a whole story mapped out. Some are much less organised and just end up in utter chaos.
The players literally can do whatever they want, which means that chaos reigns always. So the campaign that I'm most proud of is the one that I played with you, which was you were a bunch of animal handlers and you had been contracted to rid a small parochial village of a bunch of rowdy geese. I've treated it a little bit like a proper tabletop board game, but you can play it really well online. You can play it over video call.
Why do you love it in particular?
It's a form of storytelling, and that's why I like it, but it's a very interactive storytelling. And it's just a really fun thing for a group of friends to do.
And I think the thing that attracted me to it was like the way it's shown in TV shows. It's actually quite accurate. It is really good for bonding. Like once you get onto your second or your third session and everything just goes a bit nuts.
Yeah.
Assuming you're a couple of cans in and you all just get lost into the like total absurdity of it, and it's great.
It's all based on dice rolls, and what's fun is that almost every single move that you do, every decision you make, you have to roll to see how well you did that decision. You can have loads of really good plans, all the plans in the world, but ultimately it all comes down to chance, and that's what creates a lot of chaos, and it is really, really fun.
So I was just wondering how you got into it in the first place.
My dad was into it when he was a nerd my age. He bought me like a starter set, like a Dungeons & Dragons starter set, and then from there I just caught the D&D bug, and I've been designing my world for about 11 years now. The continent of Aradil. The current campaign is taking place in the Orklands of Knarlock.
Why do you think it's remained so niche?
I think fantasy in general was kind of banished to the basement, but I think that in the last couple of years it's become much more public, and I think one of the big things is podcasts. I think it really suits podcasts and comedians chatting together, riffing. It's just brought it to an entirely new audience where they're not quite as set on the high fantasy rule following, and instead they're there for the weird storytelling.
Final summary of why you love D&D.
I love it because I can have a plan of how something is going to go, but based on a few dice rolls and based on a few character interactions, you guys can take the story as well. So it's like we're all writing the story together. It's not just me.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And that's all we've got for this week. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you're all staying safe. See you next time.
Hello everyone, my name is Liam and we are a band called Better Halves. We have gotten together virtually to do a cover of Sunshine on Leith. We hope you like it.
My heart was broken. My heart was broken. Sorrow, 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 sorrow. My heart was broken. My heart was broken. You saw it. Touched it, you claimed it, you saved it. My tears are drying, my tears are drying. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. My tears are drying. My tears are drying. Your beauty and kindness made tears clear my blindness. Why all I'm worth, my room on this earth. Oh, I will be with you. Why all the chief put sunshine